Welcome to the Scurv podcast. I'm your host, LanceScurvX of LanceScurvX.com. The title today, I know, caught a lot of attention, and that is, why do so many Black athletes date white women after they get rich? That's a question that many people have asked before in the past, and that's a discussion that could be quite touchy depending on who is having that conversation. But there's certain conversations people run from because they know deep down that the truth inside of them is uncomfortable. This is one of those conversations. Every year during draft season, whether it's football or basketball, social media lights up with the same observation. A young Black athlete walks across the stage, signs a life-changing contract, and standing right beside him is usually a white girlfriend, white fiancé, or very light-skinned women. People notice it over and over, but most are too afraid to ask the deeper question out loud. The issue is not interracial dating by itself. Adults can love whoever they choose, if it is true love, and not something fetishized. Nobody owns another human being, and nobody should be policing relationships. But when a repeated social pattern keeps showing up in public life, people naturally begin to ask why. Why does this trend appear so often with wealthy Black male athletes? Why does it become more visible after fame and money arrive? And why does the conversation immediately become emotional whenever somebody points it out? Many people want to reduce the issue to simple attraction, but that explanation feels incomplete. Attraction exists in every race and culture, but patterns usually reveal something deeper than personal taste alone. Behind attraction can exist social pressure, media influence, economic strategy, trauma, status seeking, insecurity, or learned ideas about what success is supposed to look like. Those hidden forces shape people more than they realize. For generations, America has connected whiteness with power, status, beauty, safety, professionalism, and financial opportunity. Whether people admit it or not, those messages are pushed everywhere through television, advertising, sports marketing, movies, music industries, corporate culture, and social media. Our brains are bombarded. When young Black men suddenly enter wealthy spaces that were historically controlled by white institutions, many begin adjusting themselves to fit what they believe those spaces reward the most. That is where this conversation becomes painful, very painful. Because now we're forced to examine not only dating choices, but identity itself. We have to ask whether some people truly love who they are when the money is gone, the fame disappears, and when cameras turn off. We have to ask whether success sometimes becomes connected to escaping Blackness instead of uplifting it. And that is a hard truth many people are not emotionally prepared to confront. A lot of these athletes come from environments where survival was the main focus. They grow up hearing that sports are their ticket out. From childhood, they are trained to perform, compete, sacrifice, and survive. Then one day, they enter professional spaces filled with agents, advertisers, executives, brand managers, and corporate sponsors who often see them less as human beings and more as products. Once money enters the picture, image becomes everything. The athlete is no longer just a man. He becomes a brand. Every outfit, every interview, every social media post, and every relationship starts being viewed through a marketing lens. The people around him begin shaping his image in ways that will attract endorsement deals and public approval. In many cases, the closer he appears to mainstream white America, the more safe and marketable he becomes. That is the ugly truth nobody wants to admit openly. A Black athlete can be celebrated for his talent while still being quietly pressured to soften his image. Sometimes that means changing how he talks. Sometimes that means avoiding certain political opinions. Sometimes that means distancing himself from parts of Black culture that corporations consider too aggressive or too urban. And sometimes that pressure extends into relationships. That does not mean every interracial relationship is fake or strategic. That would be dishonest and unfair. Some people genuinely fall in love across racial lines, and there is nothing wrong with that. But pretending that social conditioning plays no role at all would also be dishonest. America has always rewarded closeness to whiteness in ways both obvious and subtle. When a young athlete suddenly receives millions of dollars while being surrounded by people who constantly tell him what image sells best, his dating life may begin changing in ways he barely notices himself. He may honestly believe every decision is fully personal while never realizing how deeply society shaped his ideas long before he became rich. One reason this topic becomes so emotional is because the Black community carries historical wounds that never fully healed. During slavery and segregation, Black families were constantly attacked, separated, humiliated, and destabilized. Black men were stripped of power. Black women were forced into impossible burdens. Generations inherited trauma, survival instincts, mistrust, and emotional damage that still affects relationships today. For many Black women, independence was never simply a lifestyle choice. It became survival. History taught them they could not always depend on protection, stability, or support. They learned to carry families, raise children, work jobs, survive pain, and keep moving even when exhausted. That strength is often praised publicly, but many times it was born from suffering rather than empowerment. At the same time, many Black men grew up carrying insecurities tied to status, masculinity, economic pressure, and social rejection. In America, Black masculinity has always been heavily judged, feared, controlled, or stereotyped. Some men respond to that pressure by chasing symbols of validation. For some, dating white women becomes tied psychologically to status, success, acceptance, or achievement. That does not mean every Black man dating outside his race hates himself, but it does mean society has spent centuries teaching people which relationships are considered prestigious and which are considered ordinary. Those messages sink deep into the subconscious, whether people realize it or not. The real tragedy is that instead of healing together, too many Black men and Black women now speak about each other with resentment, suspicion, and hostility. Social media made it worse. Every conversation becomes a battle. Every disagreement becomes gender warfare. Every painful experience becomes proof that the other side is the enemy. Meanwhile, the deeper issues remain unresolved. Modern media plays a major role in shaping what people desire. Athletes live under constant public visibility. Their relationships are photographed, analyzed, and turned into headlines. Certain couples get celebrated more heavily than others because they fit the image corporations want attached to their products. In entertainment and advertising, lighter skin and proximity to whiteness are still often treated as more universally accepted. This affects casting, endorsements, influencer marketing, sponsorships, and public relations. Many people inside those industries understand this privately, even if they never say it publicly. That pressure creates a dangerous message for young Black men watching from home. They begin connecting success with distance from their own roots. They start believing that upgrading financially means upgrading romantically into whiteness. Again, not everyone thinks this consciously, but culture constantly pushes the message underneath the surface. At the same time, Black women are often placed under impossible standards. They are expected to be independent, but not too independent. Strong, but not too strong. Attractive, but not too sexual. Supportive, but never demanding. Successful, but never intimidating. Society punishes them for behaviors that are acceptable in other groups. That double standard creates bitterness and exhaustion. Then social media enters and turns private relationship choices into public debates. People begin speaking in extremes. Some men start disrespecting Black women openly while praising other races. Some women respond with anger and distrust toward Black men altogether. The internet rewards conflict, so the division keeps growing louder. But beneath all the noise is a deeper cry for healing, identity, respect, and understanding. At the center of this conversation is one uncomfortable question. How do people truly see themselves? A person secure in who they are does not need another race to validate their worth. They do not see relationships as trophies, upgrades, or status symbols. They are not trying to escape themselves. They are simply building a life with someone they genuinely love and respect. But many people are still fighting internal battles shaped by generations of social programming. America has always attached value to whiteness in ways that damaged how Black people see themselves and each other. Those wounds do not disappear just because laws changed. Trauma can survive inside culture long after history books move on. This is why the conversation cannot simply stop at dating preferences. It must also address self-worth, media influence, family structure, economics, and healing. If Black men and women continue viewing each other as enemies instead of partners, the division only deepens. Real love requires emotional maturity, accountability, sacrifice, patience, and respect. It cannot survive on money, status, lust, or image alone. Eventually, the cameras stop flashing, the contracts expire, fame fades. What remains is character, and character cannot be bought. One of the most dangerous things happening today is how quickly people reduce serious cultural issues into entertainment. Social media turns pain into viral clips and trauma into jokes. Entire communities debate these subjects through insults, memes, in outrage instead of honest reflection. The goal should not be attacking interracial couples. The goal should not be policing love. The goal should be understanding why certain patterns exist and what those patterns reveal about society, identity, and unresolved wounds. A healthy community should be able to ask difficult questions without immediately collapsing into hatred. It should be possible to discuss media influence, beauty standards, racial conditioning, and generational trauma without dehumanizing anybody involved. Too many people are reacting emotionally without examining the larger system shaping those outcomes. The issue did not begin with athletes. The issue began with centuries of messaging about who deserves protection, softness, prestige, femininity, masculinity, and social value. And until those deeper conversations happen honestly, the cycle will continue repeating itself generation after generation. At the end of the day, people will date who they want. Nobody can control another person's heart, but freedom does not remove the right to ask thoughtful questions about visible social trends. Patterns matter because they often reveal the hidden psychology of culture. The bigger danger is when people become afraid to think critically. Once society labels every uncomfortable conversation as hate, manipulation becomes easier. Honest dialogue disappears. Real healing becomes impossible because nobody wants to touch the wound. Black men and Black women both carry historical pain that deserves understanding instead of constant mockery. Neither side heals through humiliation. Neither side heals through public disrespect. And neither side heals by pretending history has no impact on the present. If success teaches someone to reject their own reflection, then that success came with a spiritual price tag. Money can buy luxury, fame, attention, but it cannot repair a fractured identity. Only truth, self-awareness, and healing can do that. The real challenge moving forward is learning how to build relationships rooted in respect instead of ego, image, fear, resentment, or social programming. Because when all the noise dies down, people still have to live with themselves long after the applause ends. And this has been going on for so long, and we just can't seem to talk about it honestly. I'd love to continue this conversation, maybe do a live show with others who might be interested in coming in if they're not afraid to talk about it, or just leave a few comments that we can react to and keep it with critical thinking in mind, not the emotionalism, because there's still a lot of manipulation and wounds out there that are fresh. So let's move forward if we can, because this thing has been going on for too long. Much love to you all. LanceScurv out. I hope to hear from you. Peace.